Maggie, I am so thrilled to have you on as this week's live lunch and learn guest. I told you right before we hit record that I was actively in the middle of reading your book, actually, when I got an email from you asking about being a guest. And I was like, oh my gosh, this feels like one of those pinch me moments where I was already going to be pitching you. And then you beat me to it. So I'm so excited to have you on. Thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you for having me and for making it easy for you to say yes because you were already reading the book, so you knew what was going on.
I did, and I love it. But before we dive into the book, why don't you tell everyone um, just a little bit about what it is that you do? Because I feel like you have your hand in so many different places in the business sphere. So tell us a little bit
I
about
really do.
what you do.
All right, so I'm Maggie Patterson. I am a business consultant and I work with solo and micro business owners. And I'm really focused on helping them simplify their business, make it sustainable, and creating what I call a boring business because the reality is there's so much hype out there and I talk a ton about all the bad business advice, but what people really need is really practical strategies that actually work for the real life. No one started their business to be like, hey, I want to work all the time. So I'm really committed, especially for those seasoned service business owners, to be like, hey, you don't have to have a course, you don't have to go and do all these other things. Let's make the version of your business you have right now better and less drama. Like when I say boring, I don't mean like you're going to be bored in the business. I mean, you're not going to have all these like fires. You're not going to be running around with that fire hose going, "Oh my gosh, I can't deal." And honestly, so many business owners are their own worst enemy. They just create all this needless layers of complication because that's what we're taught entrepreneurship should be like, when a service business can be very, very simple and very profitable.
Oh my gosh. Okay. 100%. We are our own worst enemies. And I feel like the type of people drawn to entrepreneurship tend to be the kind of people that love a challenge, right? And
Yeah.
so we resist this idea of having a boring business, which I love, but we resist it because we want that new and exciting. And it's just not sustainable. It's not sustainable to always have something exciting going on in our business because we're stretching ourselves too thin.
Yeah. And I think what we could look at, if we reframe that and say, okay, maybe what I should be doing if I want more excitement is getting the business to a point where it's not stressing me out. It's not, sending me into these burnout cycles continuously. And I'm going to go get a hobby. I'm going to go get that dopamine hit somewhere else. And I'm forever saying to my clients, I'm like, how about a hobby? They're like, but I'm like, no, no, how about a hobby? Like, go do something else because we get so wrapped up in the business. I mean, I'm guilty of this too. And then the business starts to be our entire personality. And that is not like, yes, there is seasons where you're going to be working more. There's seasons when you're building the business, but at a certain point, you should be able to have some space and let the business work for you in the way it was intended. And the other thing I always think about is like, we all have seasons in our business. I've been through so many changes life wise since I started my own business. And not every season is going to be a season where I even want anything exciting going on in the business. So, I've got enough excitement in my personal life. Thank you very much.
It's so real. And in getting a hobby that we don't turn into another business, I
Yes.
say to
Guilty of this one.
myself, because
Yeah.
it's me. Um, okay, real quick, your video went out, just a heads up.
Oh,
Um,
goodness. What's happening here?
but we can just keep moving forward if you'd like. Um,
I'll bring myself back here.
Perfect. I saw your image for a minute.
What on earth? I'm sorry, Amanda. Apparently today
No,
is
you're totally fine.
technical issues day.
It happens.
Oh,
And we can just keep rolling
oh yeah,
and
let's just keep rolling and I will behind
perfect.
the scenes here try to make this
Perfect.
work.
And if not, that is okay because we still have your wonderful knowledge. Um, One thing that you didn't touch on that actually is how I found you is the way that you call out some of the BS practices in the online business space. And I know you in the book, which again we will get to, you do some of that, but that is actually how I found you. You popped up on someone must have shared something of yours on Instagram. Um, and you were calling out some of the predatory tactics in the
Yes.
online business space. And I was like, ooh, I like her. And so then I followed you and I just have so enjoyed seeing you do that and calling out those predatory tactics because I think it is so important for us to realize that not all practices that are spoken about are good practices for us to be implementing in our own businesses.
It's so, so true. And here's the thing, like, so many people who start businesses don't necessarily have we say like a classic business background. They come to it for any variety of things. And the reality is what happens is you realize you don't know everything. You don't know what you don't know. So then the next thing you know, you're listening to these celebrity entrepreneurs on Instagram, Threads, YouTube, wherever. And then what happens from there is not great because you start to outsource your agency, you start to think you are doing it wrong, and then the reality is you spend a lot of time, money, and energy on things that are not necessarily right for you or your business. And what I see a lot with service business owners is they're taking advice that is meant for course businesses, for creator businesses, and it really, really messes with them. They start doing all these extra things, creating small digital products that they never would have done if they hadn't fallen down this rabbit hole. And that's really why in the book, the first three chapters are talking about the culture of entrepreneurship, the culture of bad business advice, and how we as consumers need to be able to discern to say, hey, you know what? This is not for me, because all that glitters on the internet is not actually gold.
Well, and I also think it's so important to be able to recognize when something is not for you and when it's not for you right now.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's such a fine line of how do I know if this idea is one that I should do, or if it's one I should throw away, or if it's one that I should save in a parking lot folder for a year down the road, you know?
Yeah. And I think part of it is, a lot of the places I see business owners really going off track is those kind of impulse purchases where it has been truly predatory. There's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of manipulation. And that is why part of the work I do, and I spent a lot of time in the book setting this up, and I have a podcast called Duped that I co host where we talk about those practices because being able to spot those practices save you so much time and effort and energy going into those things. And what we end up doing is this last minute, it's like 11:58, we're like, oh, I should buy this, oh my gosh, I need this thing right now. And then we end up going down this complete rabbit hole because the thing is, we're all very, people start businesses, we have entrepreneurial optimism, we want our business to succeed, we want to be the best we can be. And then we start hearing people selling us things that solve problems we didn't know we had. We start to think. So I always tell people, like, get really clear on what supports you need, what types of things you need to be investing in the business. The same way you were, you would in a corporate job, creating like a training and development plan ahead, have it in your budget, and just be able to say, you know what? I don't actually need that right now just because it's a good deal. And my mother loved a good deal, but I will tell you this, she would also say, it's not a good deal if you don't need it.
Yes. I said that to someone on Threads the other day where they were discussing whether or not they should, I think it was Flowdesk because of the unlimited bundle they have right now or whatever.
Yeah.
And they were like, it's such a good deal, but I don't think I ever plan to send email newsletters. And I was like, well, then it's not a good deal for you.
Yeah. And I think that that's a great example of where, like, whether it's tools or courses or whatever it is, we can just really get off track. I think I can think of a situation about 10 years ago before we had tools like Flowdesk and Kit, where we had MailChimp, or we had like really robust systems like Keep and Entreport. And I spent a lot of money on one of those platforms and I couldn't run it myself. And I remember I did a blog post and added it all up, and it ended up being like $24,000 in the end, like just in terms of fees and people helping me. And like, it was complete overkill for what I needed. But everyone out there was like, oh, this is going to help you get to the next level. No, it didn't help me grow my email list. It didn't help me do anything. I could have done that with a much simpler solution.
Okay, so speaking of getting to the next level, a lie that we often see and that you talk about a lot in the online business space is that we think that in order to get to the next level in our business, we have to have a team.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
is just not the case. And you've written an entire book about it. So tell us a little bit more. I forgot my copy of the book when I left my house this morning. So I'm just going to share my screen real quick so I can pull it up on Amazon for everyone to see. But tell us a little bit about the book and yeah, why you felt so passionate about writing this book.
So the majority of people I have worked with over the last 10 years doing business consulting are solo service business owners. They're creatives, they're consultants, they're professional service providers like lawyers and accountants. And the thing I kept hearing over and over is, I don't want a team. Maggie, do I have to have a team? And entrepreneurship on a broad scale, entrepreneurship in the online world, it always is seen as bigger is better, when the reality is, for so many people, bigger is not better. It's more complicated, it's more stressful. And, I've worked behind the scenes of 7-figure businesses and beyond that are barely turning a profit. Whereas you could have someone who in a solo service business is, their top line revenue is like $90,000 a year, and their take home is better than that person who is running that 7-figure business. So I think we need to question that idea that bigger is better and really start to look at the facts, which are the majority of businesses in the United States are solo businesses. The majority of them are solo service businesses. And the majority of them never make over $100,000 a year. And that's not to say you can't make more than that, but we are sold a completely different narrative. So my book is really dedicated to that. First part of the book is really kind of debunking that and really setting up the premise like, hey, you can build a really great thriving business that is more than, job replacement for yourself, doing something you actually really enjoy. And it doesn't have to be about hustle. It doesn't have to be about scale. And then the second part of the book is really walking through some of the things I have personally done. And then I have also worked with my clients over the last 10 years to really help them approach those kind of levers in the business very, very strategically, so they're able to make more money, have more space, get the support they need, and not run themselves into the ground.
And be able to find that hobby.
Yeah. Yeah.
that they're not turned into a business. I so enjoyed reading your book. It is so practical, and that to me is just, if you're giving me a business book and it's not practical, I don't want it. It's so practical, and it really made me rethink so many aspects of my own business. Um, and I am just, yeah, in awe of the way that you just help. I mean, you cut through the BS, right? Of all of the things we're told we should do as business owners and that we could do as business owners. And it really comes down to, but what is simple and sustainable for you and your business? Um, and it's such a great book. And you have been so kind as to gift me an additional book that we can give away to everyone watching this. And so for anyone who wants to win a copy, hit subscribe on my channel, leave a comment on this video, and then we're also going to link to Maggie's podcast in the description and in the comments, and you go give that a and you'll be entered to win, and we will do a drawing 2 weeks from now. So plenty of time to get it done, but do it now while you're thinking about it, because we want to get this book in your hands to help you simplify your business, because as you know, that is what I am all about over here, is how can we run that simple and sustainable business? And Maggie has written the blueprint for exactly how to do that.
And I will say, for anyone who does not get the book through the giveaway, it's actually going on sale in October, I'm just waiting for all the platforms to update it. It's my birthday month. So I was like, hey, you know what? Let's put the book on sale and get it in more hands, because it's been so interesting with having people like yourself, Amanda, read it. Like, they come back to me and they're like, this one thing just like totally changed my perspective on the business. And that's why I wrote the book, because there's only one of me and I can't work with everybody. So I might as well put this in a format that is very consumable. And it's meant to be a guidebook. You don't have to read the first 3 chapters and then jump around, because you should not be reading this in sequential order and then be like, I'm going to implement absolutely everything in here. It is meant to be something you keep on your desk. You have, Post-it notes in and you make notes.
I feel called out.
I know how you all work. You're like, here's how I'm going to change my life based on what this book. And it's like, no. Like, let's figure out the thing that is the biggest pain point for you right now in the business. Maybe you're not paying yourself enough. Maybe you don't feel like you have a support. Maybe you need to work on your boundaries. Pick the thing that is causing you the most grief on an ongoing basis and start with that.
What do you tend to find is most commonly the thing that your clients need to work on in order to stay small in an intentional way?
Oh, it always comes down to a few specific things. So, generally, when I start working with people, I'm not working with brand new baby business owners. I'm working with people who are 3, 5, sometimes 10 years into this. And there's been a number of decisions they've made along the way that have created, for lack of a better term, some bad business practices for themselves. So, I tend to see a lot of people that really need to work on their boundaries. And sometimes the boundary is not the boundary with the client, it's a boundary with themselves. Just being like, oh, I said I wasn't going to work on the weekend. And then they're like, well, just do this one thing. Like being able to not just set the boundaries, but hold them. Sometimes I see a lot of people that struggle with scope of work with clients. They're trapped in that over delivery cycle, especially right now. It is harder economically. We want to be of service to our clients. We want to retain our clients. So what do we start doing? We start doing extra, which there's a difference between providing a great client experience and over servicing, because now when we're over servicing, we're eating profit. Then that leads to resentment. So sometimes we've got to look at our packages. Sometimes we have to look at the pricing. And sometimes we have to like literally just be like, we're not doing this anymore. And I will say pricing is probably the biggest thing I see with service business owners, even this climate. 95% of the time when people get to me, they are undercharging, and they are not thinking strategically about things like, how do I price my strategy packages differently than my more tactical work? How do I communicate my value to my clients? And the final thing I will say, a lot of people, service business owners, even the ones who work in marketing, love to avoid marketing. They've been run on referrals for so long that it's like, hey, yeah, that only works to a point. And every business gets to this point where they go, oh yeah, maybe I should be doing some of that marketing stuff.
Yep. And it's one of those things where, if you're marketing and then you stop, you can still skate by for a while on
Yes.
the residuals of that marketing. And then all of a sudden, there's nothing. And you're like, what happened? I haven't been marketing, nothing changed. But in reality, it's not as soon as you stop marketing, it stops working. It's marketing is a long game. Um, okay, boundaries. What? None of that sounded relevant to me. Um, what advice do you have for people who they don't struggle with boundaries with clients, but they struggle with those boundaries with themselves? How do they get out of that cycle?
So for me, when I look at this with the people I've worked with over the years, is you've got to figure out why. What is the underlying reason? And sometimes it's much deeper than what's going on in the business. It's a pattern you have from literally childhood of people pleasing. And sometimes I will say to my clients, sometimes things are a therapy issue. And please go take that up with a licensed mental health professional. And sometimes it's a need for outside accountability to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to shut down my laptop every day at 4:30. So if you see me here in Slack, Maggie, give me the what for. So I think figuring out for you why you constantly don't honor your commitments to yourself. And it's
Cool, cool,
often,
cool.
yeah, not feeling attacked at all, right, Amanda?
Mm-mm.
But
Not
I
at
think
all.
it's, also understanding the difference between this is a pattern and like, oh, this is a one off. There's always going to be times where you're like, oh, something totally happened during the day. I had to take my dog to the vet unexpectedly. I need to, renegotiate the boundary. But I think if you see a pattern, being able to figure out what's really underlying that and why you keep doing it. Because the biggest thing I see is people literally being like, oh, I'm not going to work. I'm only going to work 30 hours a week. And then the next thing they know, there's 45 hours on their timesheet. And we don't really know why. They don't have the client work for it. They're spending a lot of time on busy work. And a lot of times it's a coping mechanism for anxiety or something else going on.
Wow. Okay. Um, I just Feel like I've been in therapy. Okay, pricing.
I do joke that maybe I should just like get my therapy on the going on the, as an extra line of business.
Because you need another one. That's so funny. Okay, well, now that we all feel called out about our boundaries, pricing.
Yeah.
What you mentioned a few issues, but I'm curious, right here, right now in this current economy, what is the biggest pricing red flag that you're seeing with clients?
I think it depends on what your line of work is, but there is definitely two things happening is there is a collective cost consciousness, whether you work with corporate clients or you work with other entrepreneurs, or you work with consumers, and you as a business owner need to figure out, okay, we are operating in an environment where trust is lower, budgets are tighter. What do I need to be doing to help people and support them with that decision? So instead of looking at the pricing from the perspective of, hey, they're going to try to get a deal, how am I reinforcing my value to that potential client? And again, so many service providers have done really well with very minimal things up until this point. So maybe, if you're a designer, do you need to look at your portfolio? Do you need to have more than testimonials? Do you need to have case studies? Do you need to improve your proposals? Because all of those things are reinforcing your pricing. And there are things that we just keep kind of, well, I'll do that sometime. And then we never get to it. And I feel like that is much more critical in this environment. And then the second thing I see, and, content person to content person, Amanda, this one hurts, is we see downward pricing pressure because of AI. A lot of our clients now, again, whether they be corporate or consumers or whoever your clients are, they think, oh, well, we could do that faster or easier or cheaper with some sort of AI tool. So thinking about, okay, if I'm, and I've experienced this in my agency with corporate clients, like they're like, well, we can get a first draft of the blog post using AI. And I'm like, okay, good luck with that, because who's going to prompt that and who's going to review it? But that's a story for another day.
I
So,
know I could do a whole episode on that.
exactly, called Good Luck and Goodbye. But, I've recognized that. So I'm thinking like, okay, well, how are we focusing more on the strategy piece, and how are we focusing more on ensuring the higher value pieces that AI can't be doing, so we can still command the prices we've always been able to command. So I think you have to think about like, what is AI's impact on my specific line of work? And what I've been saying to a lot of my clients is a lot of their clients don't even understand AI. They just know it can help them save time. So maybe you're the one writing in the custom GPT if you're comfortable with that. Maybe you're the one training them on what the AI rules should be, instead of just trying to ignore the impact of that. Like, what is the highest value to the client that you can still continue to charge for?
And then in this economy where there is people are more cost conscious and um so much more just focused on that bottom line, what what is your recommendation to people who have established prices but they feel like they're feeling like maybe I should lower my
Yeah.
prices or whatever that might look like?
Oh, yeah, this is a good one. I mean, and I think anyone who's feeling this, I want you to know you're not alone. This is something the majority of service providers are facing in some way, shape, or form. So it might be a matter of, you have now reached the limit of what you can do with the specific target market you're in, and you need to switch things up. Maybe you need to be more specific. Maybe you need to be less specific. Sometimes we're going to broaden, sometimes we're going to narrow, so that we can speak more directly to a very specific, like I would call a micro niche, a very small segment of the audience. Sometimes we're going to have to look at the scope of work and be like, you know what, I'm going to charge the same price and take some things away. Honestly, a lot of this, we have to get crafty. And one thing I've been talking about a ton, and I will be talking about this more on my podcast coming up, is understanding that people are taking longer to make buying decisions. It's where you might have gone in and been like, hey, we're going to sign you up for a year-long retainer. They're like, oh, I don't want to commit to that. So how do we give them the kind of Costco sample first? How do we have a smaller kind of a quick win offer we can get in there and it's an easier yes for them? So understanding what's really happening for them across all those things, whether it be the budgets, AI, or what they actually need. And if you have long-term clients, don't be afraid to have conversations to be like, hey, what's going on in your business? I'd like to know, where are you at with this? Because it's really easy in this environment to take all the externals and be like, oh, this must be happening to me too. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes your industry is completely stable while everything else feels shaky.
I'm super curious. What would be some examples of that Costco sampler for some different types of businesses?
Yeah. So if you look at the sell the strategy section of the book, that's kind of a good place to start with it. But even thinking like a smaller piece. So instead of coming in, and I'll use content as an example because that's what I do. Instead of coming in and being like, oh, I'm going to do this robust, analysis, content analysis and content strategy for you, maybe I'm going to come in and do a content audit. That's a fraction of that price that they can see the value, see how we think strategically, see what value could bring. So looking for those pieces of your service that you've maybe already hidden in there that people don't even recognize. And anything that's going to let you articulate your value really quickly, show that you can get them where they want to go and how you think, that's going to create way more trust and security for them.
I love that. Okay, so we have kind of done a deep dive into both boundaries and pricing, but in the book you have, is it six different
Yes.
parts of your framework? Is that
Yeah.
right? So you've
Yes.
got six different things that you dive deep into for part of the Stay in Solo framework. Other than getting the book, how can someone who's looking at their business right now and going, I have succumbed to shiny object syndrome and I have way too much going on. I really want to simplify. I don't know where to begin. Where do they begin?
It's a great question. So, what I would really recommend is zoom out and go back to where is the most friction for me right now? And for some people, that friction is going to come from the fact that you don't have enough systems in place, like really simple systems. And you're like, every time you get a new client, every time you have to write a proposal, it's just like drama in your brain because you can't figure out where you're starting. Sometimes it's going to be you literally need to look at your money systems and really get those under control because you're feeling a lot of discomfort with where your numbers are. Other times, it's going to be like, hey, I really need some support as I figure out this next stage of my business. And other times, I will say there is a lot of people that are not looking strategically at how they're paying themselves, and that is why salary is one of the main pieces of that staying solo pie, because you need to be able to pay yourself in a way in your business and plan from that versus I'm going to buy all the things and the tools and this and that, and then I'll get the little bit left over. I want everyone who has a service business to be paid well. And sometimes that's going to mean, hey, I have to be a little scrappy about my tools, or maybe I'm not going to hire that business coach, but I want money flowing out of your business bank account into your personal bank account.
Yes, I love that so much. And it's so important because if we're not paying ourselves, then we are just running a really expensive hobby and we're
Yes.
not actually running a business that is sustainable in any way, shape, or form. Okay, where can people find the book?
They can
I mean,
find
obviously, enter the giveaway, but outside of that, where can they find the book?
the book is literally all the places. So it's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, bookshop.org, Kobo, Kindle, literally all the places. I went to great lengths to get it to all the places. So, and there is no audiobook because that sounds horrible to me to have to record the book, but there is. I can barely record a podcast sometimes, Amanda. Like, look, I don't even have video on the YouTube live. Can I be trusted to do an audiobook? I don't know.
I will say recording my audiobook was easy. I have yet the requirements for getting it actually uploaded are outrageous, and we've yet to get it fully figured out, even with my podcast producer working on it. So
Yeah,
one day.
it's a whole other thing. Like, you've been through this, the Kindle version, the Kobo, like all the versions. So yeah, there is a printed book. And then if you get the book, definitely make sure you got the resource kit I talk about in the book because there's some really great tools in there.
Yes, I love it. And where, other than your podcasts, can we find you?
I like to hang out mainly on Instagram and Threads. On both of those, I'm at BS Free Business. And if anyone is trying to figure out their life as a solo business owner and really is like, I feel like I have no capacity, I have a new quiz that I would highly recommend you go take, which is at bsfreebusiness.com/quiz. It's called the Real Life Rule. And it has a very robust report after you do it and gives you 1 of 4 archetypes. And whatever your archetype is, it's not a personal attack, I swear.
Just much needed information.
Exactly.
If someone was like, okay, I love everything she's saying, I don't even want to read the book. I just want to like have her tell me what to do. How can they work with you?
So I offer, I have a number of ways. I have masterminds, which are, I just finished enrolling my one for solo service business owners. So, but we do have a program called the Squad, which is more of a community-based offer, which will be opening up again at the end of the year. And I am about to launch a new one-on-one service, which is called Revenue Reset. And I'm going to have that available towards the beginning of November. And that is truly a like 6-month one-on-one, all the Maggie you can handle, Maggie in your Voxer, Maggie on the Zoom, telling you what to do.
I love it. We will link to all of those things for sure in the description and in the show notes.
Awesome.
If you could give everyone one action step to take this week, what would it be?
Honestly, I feel like go find that point of friction is causing you drama in the business, whether that is a specific client or something that's priced too low or some boundary you need to like just find one simple thing to get you moving towards where you want to go, because we can all think of a million things to fix, but it's like, what is the one that is probably something you could do relatively easily, but would make a pretty dramatic difference?
Do you have any advice for someone who hears that and goes, there's so many points of friction. I don't know where to start unraveling things.
If I don't know where to start unraveling things, I would look at a few things. Is it a boundary issue? Like, am I full up with clients and I'm overwhelmed because of that? Or do I have too much time on my calendar because I don't have enough clients? Like, what is the cause? Because I think the advice I'm going to give you if you're full up with clients versus the advice if you don't have a full client roster are very different. And that, because the reality is when you have a full client roster, you only have so much time. Whereas if you find right now things are a little slower, okay, great. You have an opportunity, but your bigger opportunity is what are the things I need to do to fix so I get more clients in the door? Because I feel like the thing I've seen, this is probably pretty harsh to say, the thing I have seen continuously this year is that people are like, oh, my leads are slowing down. Oh, my leads are slowing down. Oh, my leads are slowing. And I'm like, you need to do something. So if you're feeling like that, don't wait. Don't be complacent. Don't like go fix your website for the 47th time. Figure out what marketing activities and what positioning activities you need to be doing so that when Q1 comes around, you're not like, oh my God, I have no more clients.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. Any suggestions on your favorite places for people to market in order to actually find clients versus just speaking into a void?
Ooh, okay. This is a really great question and incredibly nuanced. The problem I see with a lot of service business owners is they've consumed so much celebrity entrepreneur, big internet name advice that they're like, oh, I need to be on social media, or I need to be here, I need to be there, I need a lead magnet. No, 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 no. I want you to back up the bus and figure out for your client, where are they actually? Not where you think they might be, but like actually take the time, do the research, figure out where they are. And oftentimes when I do that with people, they will discover like, oh, I have all local clients and I get every one of my clients through networking. Okay, great. So how are we going to do more networking? And understanding how people really and truly come to you. Like for me, I can do all the marketing things, but I will tell you right now, people come from my podcast, they come from podcast guesting, they come from Threads, they come from Instagram. I can go do 14 other things, but they're not going to move the bar. So understanding, hey, what do I actually need to be doing? The other thing is too, if you work with corporate clients, I can tell you right now, they're not worried about you on threads. Please go find the way that they're actually going to get to you. And that's probably not going to be on social media.
I love that. And it's so true. Where you market needs to be where your people are and where they're
Yes.
looking for you. Um, and each different phase of business needs different marketing tactics.
Yeah.
Okay, Maggie, thank you so much for being here today. This was so enlightening. Again, everyone who wants a copy of the book, make sure to subscribe and leave a comment. And then we're going to link to Maggie's podcast. So you can give her a follow there too. And we will do a giveaway in 2 weeks for someone to get this book in their hands.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me, Amanda.